The van hummed softly as it rolled down the highway, the tension between them heavier than the traffic. Nate sat quietly in his chair in the back, his hands resting in his lap, eyes focused on the passing scenery but not really seeing it. Visiting their mother, Pat, always brought up a mix of emotions he couldn't easily sort through. Aaron glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "Hey, we're about 20 minutes out," Aaron said gently. "You holding up okay?" Nate gave a small shrug. "I guess just don't know how this is gonna go." Aaron nodded, understanding more than he said out loud. After a moment, he slowed the van and pulled into a quiet rest stop. "Let's pull over so I can get you changed and make sure you're comfortable before we get there," Aaron said, keeping his tone calm and matter-of-fact. Nate hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Okay, thanks." Aaron came around to the back, opening the doors carefully. His movements were practiced, respectful, never rushed, never making Nate feel like a burden. "All right, we'll take this nice and easy," Aaron said. "You just tell me if anything feels off." As Aaron helped him, Nate let out a small breath, some of the tension easing. "Hey, Aaron." "Yes." "Thanks for doing this, not just this, everything." Aaron gave a small smile. "You don't have to thank me, I've got you, always." Once everything was taken care of, Aaron made sure Nate was settled comfortably again, adjusting the blanket across his lap. "Better?" Aaron asked. "Yeah, better." Aaron closed the doors and got back into the driver's seat. As the van pulled back onto the road, the mood felt just a little lighter. "All right," Aaron said, "let's go face Mom together." Nate nodded, a bit more steady this time. "Together." Aaron kept his eyes on the road, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. "I know you hate this, but we can't go back," he said quietly. Nate frowned, shifting slightly in his chair. "Aaron, what did you do?" There was a long pause, the kind that made everything feel heavier. Aaron finally sighed. "I made a deal with someone I shouldn't have trusted. I was desperate, Nate. We needed the money and I thought I could handle it." Nate's expression tightened. "What kind of deal?" Aaron hesitated again, then admitted, 6,000, that's what we got, but it came with strings and now I'm not sure we're free of it." Nate looked out the window, processing that. "Aaron, that's not like you." "I know," Aaron said quickly. "I know, I messed up. I was just trying to fix things for you, for us, but I think I made it worse." Silence filled the van again, thicker this time. After a moment, Nate spoke, softer now. "We'll deal with it like we always do, but no more secrets, okay?" Aaron nodded, even though Nate couldn't see him clearly from the back. No more secrets. The road stretched ahead as they continued toward their mother's house, both knowing that whatever waited there wasn't the only thing they'd have to face. The van grew quiet again, the weight of everything hanging between them. Nate broke the silence, his voice tight with frustration. "You know, Rebecca and I had something real lined up," he said. "A story about Tom and Ben. It was worth $250,000. That could have fixed everything." Aaron swallowed, eyes still locked on the road. "I get it, Nate, I really do." Nate shook his head. "No, you don't. That wasn't just money, that was our way out." Aaron's grip tightened on the wheel, "And staying would have got me killed." That made Nate pause. Aaron continued, quieter now. "The guy I dealt with, he's not someone you just walk away from. If we stayed, if I didn't follow through or disappeared on him, he would have found me, and not just me, you too." Nate's expression shifted, anger mixing with concern. "Aaron, what did you get us into?" "I was trying to protect us," Aaron said, his voice cracking slightly, "but I chose the wrong way to do it." The van hummed along the highway, the tension now edged with fear. After a long moment, Nate sighed. "So what now, we just run forever?" Aaron shook his head. "No, we lay low, we figure something out, and maybe going to Mom's isn't just about her, maybe it's the only place he wouldn't think to look right away." Nate leaned back in his chair, staring up at the ceiling for a second before closing his eyes. "Rebecca's gonna be crushed," he muttered. "I know," Aaron said softly, "but at least you'll be alive to tell her why." Nate opened his eyes again, looking forward. "Then we better make sure this actually keeps us safe." Aaron nodded. "Yeah, we better." The road stretched ahead, uncertain and dangerous, but for now they were still moving forward. The van rolled to a stop in front of the house. Before Aaron could even turn off the engine, the front door swung open. Pat was already outside, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Aaron, she called out, are you still sinning? Aaron stepped out slowly, steadying himself. If you mean am I still gay, then yes. Pat didn't hesitate, then get off my property. Mom, Nate's voice cut in from the van. Pat snapped her head toward him. Nate, stay quiet, I'm talking to your brother. Aaron took a breath, trying to keep things from exploding. We didn't come here to fight, we need help. Pat scoffed, help, what happened with Jeff? Aaron rubbed the back of his neck. He's tied into the home health care services back in Georgia, we had to leave. If I stay there, he finds me or I have to keep paying him every week and I can't do that anymore. Pat's expression hardened even more, so you ran. Aaron didn't answer. Pat looked past him into the van, and who's taking care of Nate now? I am, Aaron said firmly. That earned a cold laugh, please, like you take care of anything else half done and falling apart. Nate flinched, Mom, that's not fair. I said be quiet, Pat cut in sharply. Aaron stepped closer to the van, placing a hand on the door. You don't have to like me, but we need somewhere safe just for a little while. Pat stared at him, weighing it, then finally stepped back toward the house. Fine, she said, you can stay. Nate let out a small breath of relief, but it didn't last long. Pat pointed toward the house, but you pay rent, both of you, you're grown, you don't get to come back here and freeload. Nate's voice cracked a little, I don't even have my laptop, I can't work right now. Pat didn't soften, not even a little. Figure something out or go to a group home, I am done raising kids. Silence fell hard between them. Aaron clenched his jaw, nodding once, all right, we'll figure it out. He turned back to Nate, his voice quieter now, come on, let's get you inside. Nate looked at him, uncertainty all over his face, but he nodded. As Aaron carefully helped him out of the van, the house in front of them didn't feel like home. It felt like the only option they had left. The small motel room was quiet except for the hum of the old air conditioner. Aaron set the box down gently in front of Nate. Hey, I got you something. Nate looked at him confused. Aaron, we don't have money to. Just open it, Aaron said softly. Nate did and froze for a second. A laptop. Aaron nodded, you said you couldn't work without one, so now you can. Nate ran his hand over it, his expression a mix of gratitude and worry. Aaron, you didn't have to. I know, Aaron cut in, but I wanted to, and I'm sorry for everything before for putting us in this situation. Nate looked at him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. We'll figure it out. He powered on the laptop, the screen lighting up the dim room. After connecting to the motel Wi-Fi, he opened his email. Aaron's. Something in his tone made Aaron tense. What is it? Nate swallowed, it's from Mom. He turned the screen slightly so Aaron could see. The email was short, cold. Unpaid rent $2,150, see you in court. Aaron's jaw tightened, she's actually suing us. Nate shook his head slowly, looks like it. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Nate leaned back, letting out a breath, we don't even have that kind of money. Aaron started packing the small room. Okay, then we don't panic, it's probably small claims or something, we can figure this out. Nate looked at the screen again, she really wants us gone even now. Aaron stopped packing, his expression softening. This isn't about you not being enough, Nate, this is about her and whatever she's holding on to. Nate closed the laptop halfway, staring at it, still hurts. I know, Aaron said quietly. After a second Nate straightened a bit, then we fight it or we find a way to pay it, either way we don't just roll over. Aaron nodded, yeah, we've made it this far. Nate gave a small, determined look, then let's keep going. The laptop sat between them, no longer just a gift but the start of whatever came next. The motel room felt tense, like everything was about to tip one way or another. Nate looked over at Aaron, more focused now, more determined. Aaron, you did pay for the rent for both of us, Nate said, but Mom keeps saying I'm a freeloader. When we get to court you can countersue, you paid my half, she can't just ignore that, she'd have to pay you back. Aaron nodded slowly, yeah, that actually makes sense if she took the money and still. His phone suddenly buzzed loudly in his hand. Both of them froze. Aaron looked down at the screen, eyebrows pulling together. Wait. Nate leaned forward slightly, what is it? Aaron blinked, almost not believing it. It says, $2,150 has been sent. From who? Nate asked quickly. Aaron turned the phone so Nate could see. From Mom. Silence. Nate stared at the screen then leaned back slowly. She paid you back my half of the rent. Aaron nodded, still confused. Yeah, looks like it. Nate let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, so she did count it. Aaron shook his head slightly, or she realized she didn't have a case anymore. Nate thought about that for a moment, then gave a small, tired smile. She's good. Aaron huffed a quiet laugh. That's one way to put it. The tension in the room eased just a little. Nate closed the laptop completely this time, so no court. Looks like it, Aaron said, slipping his phone back into his pocket. Nate looked over at him. Then maybe we finally get a break. Aaron nodded, softer now. Yeah, maybe we do. For the first time in a while, things didn't feel like they were falling apart. Not fixed, but stable enough to breathe. Aaron and Nate sat at a small table with takeout containers, trying to enjoy a moment that finally felt normal. Nate had just taken a bite when a man in a plain jacket approached. Nate Smith, the man asked. Nate looked up slowly. Yeah. The man handed him an envelope. You've been served. And just like that, the moment shattered. The man walked away without another word. Nate stared down at the envelope, already knowing, Mom is good, she's too good. Aaron frowned, but she paid me back. Nate let out a short, almost disbelieving laugh. Exactly, she cleared that part and still went forward with something else. Aaron leaned in. Open it. Nate did, pulling out the papers, scanning them quickly. His face tightened. She's still taking me to court, he said, saying I didn't pay rent that I owe her directly. Aaron shook his head. That doesn't make sense. I paid, then she paid me back. Nate looked up, thinking fast. Wait, we could use that. Aaron raised an eyebrow. How? Nate tapped the papers. If I pay you my half now and you show that you were the one who originally paid her, it proves the rent was covered. She can't say I didn't pay if the money chain is clear. Aaron hesitated. But you just said you didn't have a way to work or send money. Nate froze for a second, then sighed. Oh yeah. The reality hit again. Aaron leaned back in his chair. Even if we move money around now, it might look suspicious, like we're trying to fix it after the fact. Nate nodded slowly, frustration creeping back in. She really thought this through. Aaron looked at him seriously. Hey, we don't need tricks, we've got proof, bank records, the transfer she sent me, everything. Nate glanced down at the papers again. You think that's enough? It should be, Aaron said. If anything, this makes her look worse, not you. Nate exhaled, some of the tension easing. So we fight it. Aaron gave a small, confident nod. Yeah, and this time we've actually got something on our side. Nate folded the papers, setting them aside. She really doesn't know when to stop, he muttered. Aaron gave a faint smirk. Then maybe it's time someone makes her. The courtroom was quiet but tense, the kind of silence that felt like it could snap at any second. Nate sat beside Aaron, hands folded tightly in his lap, trying to stay steady. Aaron sat close, alert, protective. At the front, the judge flipped through the file, brows furrowing as she read. She leaned slightly toward the officer standing nearby and muttered, just low enough to feel personal but still heard. This woman is not playing, is she? The officer shook his head. No, Your Honor, she's not even with the circumstances. The judge let out a slow breath, closing the file for a moment before looking up. Her eyes landed on Pat first, calm, firm, completely unmoved. Then they shifted to Nate. That pause lingered. All right, the judge said, sitting up straighter. Let's make something very clear before we go any further. The room seemed to lean in. I've reviewed the initial filings and I see conflicting actions, she continued. Payment was made, then returned, and yet this case was still pursued. Pat didn't flinch, he didn't pay me directly. Aaron shook his head slightly under his breath. The judge raised a hand. You'll have your turn. She looked back at Nate and Aaron. Sir, she said to Nate, her tone softer but still firm, I need to understand your situation clearly, and I suggest everyone here chooses honesty very carefully. Nate swallowed, then nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Aaron placed a steady hand on the arm of Nate's chair. The judge tapped the file lightly. because from where I'm sitting, this isn't just about rent anymore. A brief pause. It's about whether this court is being used to make a point. The air in the room shifted. And for the first time since this all started, Pat didn't look completely in control. Nate took a deep breath, straightening slightly in his wheelchair as he addressed the judge. His voice was steady, though there was an edge of frustration. "Your Honor," he began, "my brother and I had an argument a couple of weeks ago, and because of that I wasn't able to work." He glanced briefly at Aaron, who gave him an encouraging nod. "My mother expected us to pay rent and my brother stepped in and paid for both of us, but she said I shouldn't have my own brother pay for my half of the rent." The judge's eyes softened slightly as she looked at Nate in his wheelchair. "I see," she said thoughtfully, "so you were temporarily unable to earn and your brother covered your share." "Yes, Your Honor," Nate replied. "He did it so we wouldn't be homeless, and I've been trying to get back on track. I don't think it's fair that I'm being punished for that, especially since he covered it." Aaron added gently, "Your Honor, Nate has been doing his best despite his situation. He's not avoiding responsibility, he just needed a little help temporarily, and we have proof that the rent was fully covered." The judge nodded, making a few notes. "Thank you for clarifying. It's important the court understands the context. Especially considering your circumstances, we need to make sure fairness is applied." Nate exhaled slowly, letting a small measure of relief wash over him. The room still felt tense, but finally, someone was seeing the situation as it really was. The courtroom grew tense as Pat stood, her voice steady and firm though edged with frustration. "Your Honor," she began, "I know my child has a disability, I understand that." She glanced briefly at Nate, then back to the judge. "But I also know that some people with disabilities have caregivers who have paid on their behalf before, and yet sometimes they don't pay it themselves." She took a breath, her tone sharpening. "I don't want Nate to be reliant on Aaron for the rest of his life. Everyone else has to figure things out for themselves, disability or not. Life doesn't stop for anyone because of their circumstances." Nate's hands tightened on his wheelchair armrests. Aaron's jaw clenched, but he stayed quiet, letting Pat speak. The judge leaned back slightly, taking in the weight of Pat's words. "I understand your concern, Ms. Pat, but this court also has to consider what is fair and reasonable, given the proof of payment and the temporary nature of the support your son received." Pat shook her head, not backing down. "Temporary or not, Your Honor, I don't want him expecting someone else to bail him out every time he can't manage something on his own." Nate's voice came next, quiet but firm. "Your Honor, I never asked to be bailout out. Aaron helped because we needed it while I got back on my feet. I'm not trying to rely on him forever, I'm trying to prove I can handle things even with my disability." Aaron squeezed Nate's shoulder gently, the judge nodded, making notes. "This court sees both sides, we're here to ensure fairness, not to punish anyone unnecessarily, that will be taken into account." The tension in the room lingered, but Nate felt a small spark of hope. Finally, someone was listening to the truth of the situation. The courtroom went quiet as the judge looked directly at Nate. "Do you have a laptop now?" she asked. Nate nodded, "Yes, Your Honor." "And you're able to work?" the judge followed. "Yes," Nate said more confidently this time. The judge paused, then closed the file in front of her. "I've heard enough." Everyone in the room stilled. She continued, clear and firm. "Since Ms. Pat refunded the payment to Mr. Aaron, the court recognizes that the original rent transaction was effectively undone." Aaron glanced at Nate, both listening closely. The judge went on, "Therefore, Mr. Nate, you are responsible for paying your mother for the back rent owed." Nate swallowed, nodding slowly. The judge added, "However, this court acknowledges that you now have the means to work and address that responsibility." She lifted her gavel slightly. "Case adjudicated." Bang! The sound echoed through the room. Nate let out a quiet breath, processing it. "So, I have to pay her back." Aaron leaned in slightly. "Yeah, but at least it's clear now, no more confusion." Nate nodded, "And no more running." Across the room, Pat stood silently, no victory, no smile, just resolution. As Nate turned his chair to leave, he looked a little more focused than before. Not defeated. Just responsible for what came next. The tension from the courtroom hadn't fully faded, but something had shifted. Outside, as they stood near the steps, Pat turned to Nate, her tone more measured than before. "Nate," she said, "since you're back on your feet, I'll give you 2 months to pay it." Nate looked at her, surprised for a moment, but then he straightened slightly in his chair. "I don't need 2 months," he said. "I need 2 weeks, I just got a raise." Aaron glanced at him, a bit impressed. Pat studied Nate carefully, like she was trying to see if this was real or just words. After a moment she nodded once. "All right then, 2 weeks." There was a brief silence. Nate gave a small, determined nod. "I'll have it to you." Pat didn't smile, but her tone softened just a fraction. "You better." She turned and walked away. Aaron looked down at Nate. 2 weeks, huh? Nate exhaled, a mix of nerves and confidence. "Yeah, no more dragging this out, I want it done." Aaron gave a small smile. "I think that's the first time she actually saw you as handling it." Nate looked ahead, focused. "Then I'm not messing it up." For once the path forward was clear, short, intense, but finally in Nate's control. Pat paused before getting into her car, turning back toward them. "I love you both," she said, her voice still firm but softer than it had been in a long time. Aaron didn't hesitate. "Love you too." Nate looked at her just for a second longer, then gave a small smile. "Love you more." For a moment, everything else, the court, the arguments, the stress, faded into the background. Pat gave a slight nod. Like she didn't quite know how to show it any other way, then got into her car. As she drove off, Aaron looked down at Nate. "Well, that's new." Nate let out a quiet breath. "Yeah, it is." Aaron started walking again, guiding Nate along. "Still got 2 weeks," Aaron said. Nate smirked a little. "Yeah, but now it feels different. Not perfect. Not easy. But maybe finally moving in the right direction."